to the Dr. Selma B Show. To my MLM family, love you for your continued support. If this is your first time, sit back and get comfy. To my YouTube viewers, be sure to click the subscribe button and also turn on the notifications by clicking the bell and choosing all so you never miss our Legacy Ed News, community conversations with leaders, and new episodes of the Dr. Selma B Show. Thank you for showing Dr. B some love. As you know, this show is really about having the opportunity to connect the issues that I see in our schools that also play out in our lives. As I plan the show, I always consider questions from the audience and the vision of making our personal lives and community places of strength. I recently received the following note from a viewer. Dear Dr. B, I appreciated your talk on self-worth and the testing culture. I'm a grandparent raising my 8-year-old grandson, and I'm worried about the violence in schools. His school does not have a metal detector. What can I do to get one? What is happening to our young people? When I was growing up, we would fight it out and walk away. Something must be done to end the violence. Shouldn't all schools have metal detectors? Any ideas you can share would be welcomed. Keep up the great work. Well, I appreciate this note, and I want to use this as a tipping point for our conversations this day. Well, first, sending a pink hug for taking the time to write me a note and taking the risk to share your concern. First, also, kudos to you for stepping up and raising your grandson. I want to invite you to connect with grandparents around the world, an organization working with grandparents to address community issues. You should know that I am also concerned as I watch the news and the culture of violence within our community, and the violence that is being perpetuated by our children on each other. And it's not only in New York, it is happening in all of our cities. Take a look at some of the stats on the data in places like Chicago. Your question addressed some complex issues. And on the issue of metal detectors in schools, there are different camps and opinions. First, the opposition to metal detectors feel that detectors perpetuate the culture of violence and policing within our community and fuel the school-to-prison pipeline. On the other side, unless we have safe communities, then we do not have a way to keep our children safe in school. I personally do not believe that the metal detectors should be removed at this time. And the reason why is because the student who's bringing a gun or weapon to school is because he or she doesn't feel safe and has built up anger and making a poor decision. And when I talk to students, there are students who will never pick up a weapon, but they want to feel safe and not worry about a classmate who may have a weapon or bring a weapon to school. And as I noted, it's important to know that we have to couple these issues with regards to metal detectors to really help parents understand what they don't know. When was the last time you were at an airport and you had to remove your shoes, your belt, and the works? Well, if your child starts school at 8:30, but there are 500 students in your school building, they all have to go through the metal detectors. And if there's only one security guard, well, now you've got a hot mess. Kids become frustrated, anger, and they decide to cut class. The teachers are not necessarily compassionate because they don't want to have to wait online and to wait for the student to show up. That's really what's fueling and adding to the culture of violence. As noted, the issue of violence is complex. But what I wanted to spend our time today talking about are solutions, and specifically the My Brother's Keeper initiative. Have you heard of the MBK initiative? When I ask my educators and parents, they usually respond with a look of wonder and say, "No, Doc, I've never heard of it. What is it?" Well, as we know, President Obama became the first African American male to become president in 2008. In February 2012, the world was horrified at the killing of Trayvon Martin, who was only 17 years old at the time. Here's a short clip of President Obama's speech in response to Trayvon Martin.
When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago. And when you think about why, in the African American community at least, there's a lot of pain around what happened here, I think it's important to recognize that the African American community is looking at this issue through a set of experiences and a history that that doesn't go away. You know, there are very few African American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me. There are very few African American men who haven't had the experience of walking across the street and hearing the locks click on the doors of cars. That happens to me, at least before I was a senator. There are very few African Americans who haven't had the experience of getting on an elevator and a woman clutching her purse nervously and holding her breath until she had a chance to get off. That happens often. And you know, I don't want to exaggerate this, but those sets of experiences inform how the African American community interprets what happened one night in Florida. And it's inescapable for people to bring those experiences to bear.
What's powerful about that speech is that Obama is saying that that could be him, that could be his son. In 2014, President Obama launched this initiative to address persistent opportunity gaps and to change the narrative of boys and young men of color. Now, it's important to note that I always get this question when I talk about MBK with my schools and with my parents. What about the girls? Well, let's not push and get away from the hard and complex issue. Let's be honest, slavery served to break up the family, and the criminalization of black men is really woven into the fabric of America. Take a look at some of the data about the violence that our boys are experiencing, the number of black men in prison, the number of our youth that are homeless, and the short life expectancy. You don't have to feel guilty or shame in focusing on boys. But you should know that when my team works with schools and communities around MBK, we talk about youth. And yes, we talk about all children, no matter their race, their gender, their ethnicity, their socioeconomic status, their culture. And we ask the following questions. How are the children? And what is the culture we are seeking to engender for our children? Let me share with you the Mbk Milestones, which I think really get to solutions. As we seek to address the opportunity gaps for our young people and to really end the culture of violence, it's important to consider the 6 milestones from the Mbk Alliance. Milestone number 1, getting a healthy start and entering school ready to learn. Well, beloved, all children should have a healthy start and really be ready cognitively, physically, socially, and emotionally. As a community, we will have to ensure that our future moms and dads have the social and emotional support that they need to give their little ones a stable environment. Childcare has to be affordable and accessible. It also means that we have to rebuild and repair the village around our children. We have to be willing to say good morning and let them know that they are loved and secure. To get to this milestone also requires strong partnerships between our physicians, our families, our dentists, our schools, our churches, and our businesses. Milestone number 2, reading at grade level by 3rd grade. All children should be reading at grade level by age 8, at the age of which reading to learn becomes essential. Reading, as you know, just opens up learning and new worlds. To accomplish this goal, we have to truly and fundamentally invest in training our teachers on how to actually teach reading. There are no shortages of curriculums and textbooks and intervention programs. And guess what? They're not working. Why? Most people don't know that although teachers might get a master's and a certification, they never even touch a reading program when they go through their degrees. When they complete their in-service training, they focus more on education and classroom management. Teachers are overwhelmed. They have 25 and sometimes 30 students in their classroom. And as a result, our children, and especially our boys and young men of color, go from grade to grade to grade without learning how to read. So to end the physical violence we see, it's really an outcome of the passive violence our children face as they go from grade to grade without getting the confidence and the voice that they need to be successful in their school and to be successful in the community. The 3rd milestone is also important. Graduation from high school ready for college and career. The key word is ready. All youth should receive a quality high school education and graduate with the skills and tools needed to advance to post-secondary education or to training. The graduation rates within our schools are dismal, and when students successfully graduate, they truly don't feel prepared if they're forced to take remedial classes. And as they enter college, there are only a select number of students who are actually taking on grade level college courses. They're not prepared for the math and the science classes. So if they say, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, whatever it is, that math class serves as a gatekeeper. Check out my video on ending the math achievement gap, where I speak about the importance of math being a language. Milestone number 4 also connects to education. Completing post-secondary education or training. Every American should have the option to attend post-secondary education and receive the education and training needed for the quality jobs of today and tomorrow. Well, beloved, take a look once again at our community. What does the violence really represent? It represents poverty, it represents despair, and it represents a lack of access to the training needed to move yourself forward. Milestone number 5, successfully entering the workforce. Anyone who wants a job should be able to get a job that allows them to support themselves and their families. This milestone speaks to the fact that we want to end the high incarceration rates, and we want to be able to create opportunities that truly lead to work so we can improve our quality of lives. And finally, milestone number 6 is one that is near and dear to my heart. Keeping kids on track and giving them second chances. All youth and young adults should be safe from violent crime, and individuals who are confined should receive the education, training, and treatment that they need for a second chance. Second chances speak to the nature of the relationships that we want to have with our students and our young people. As we work with districts to develop action plans to meet the My Brother's Keeper milestones, we dedicate time to strategic planning, articulating goals, key actions, and most importantly, the alignment of resources. We cannot reach these milestones and change the narrative without the funding that we need. And yes, we have to have a plan that speaks to the goals, and in particular, all young people, including our girls and our young women. If we are going to change the narrative for our young people, We also have to talk about the difference between raising our sons and investing in fatherhood. Here's a short clip from one of our community conversations with leaders where we tackle the difference.
I want to honor what you just said, Director Leacock, about our boys having access to role models of color, right? Men in their classroom. And that's why I say it's an economic agenda. So the social reproduction of failure is that if I never see a Black man in a position, right, of authority and as a role model, then all they do, the kids have figured out the truth. They know the plan you have for them is prison. So they're going to wear their hat backwards, they're going to pull their pants down, and they're going to tell you, this is the best years of my life, whether you like it or not. And so they know that the plan is the pipeline to prison. So we have to begin to have an economic agenda. And I do get pushback when people talk about teachers of color in the classroom. I work directly with teachers. Just because you're a Black male doesn't mean that you're a great teacher, but we have mechanisms to help people improve their pedagogy and to give them a space to learn. And we don't want anybody hurting kids of any race. We want people in the classroom who want to be there, who love this work. So Principal Moody, I want to call on you a little bit. Tell us about how do you go about developing your team? How is it that you go about creating a space of people being willing to do this work with you?
That's a great question, and I'm of the belief. A lot of people say it starts at the top. I'm on the belief that sometimes the groundswell needs to start from the bottom up. And I empower my people from the bottom up. I don't believe they're at the bottom. We work for our students, and some of the positions in the school, like the paraprofessionals or the custodians or the security guards. For me and my system, these people who are connected to the community and from the community have leadership roles in the school. So I don't necessarily say they are above teachers or teachers are above them, but they are extremely powerful in the school. When our kids come to school, they relate to them. They represent me and my message. But the way we do it, honestly, is like anything else. Human beings want to feel a part of something. So if the majority of the people have that same philosophy that we're going to teach and reach our students at all costs, those teachers who are not doing that, or those staff members who are not doing that, become the outcasts. We run a program called we run our behavior modification program. Is called the Positive Peer Culture Program, where the power, we believe that the power of the peer is much greater than the power of the adult, meaning that students listen to students more so than they listen to staff. So we guide, motivate, and direct the culture. Where most adults get in the way is thinking that they control the students. We don't control the students. We work for the students. So when we empower them in that way, naturally, it's not just giving them the reins to do whatever they want, but we empower them to take ownership of their education, to want what's best for them. But we kind of guide them in the direction that we feel they need to go, but we make them believe that they are coming up with it. And in fact, they are coming up with ways to make themselves better. And we support that. And for teachers who do not buy into that, they get confronted by not only staff, students, parents, they become the outliers. So we develop that culture, and it's through constant communication and meeting, which does not really, schools don't really offer that type of time, but we're an alternative school. So we create that. We have a period each day where we work on this, and all staff members are involved with the students. And I meet with my staff once a week for about an hour. We create the time to do that so that we can guide the thought processes of how they should be thinking about empowering young people instead of taking control and trying to overpower them.
Thank you so much. So I heard #reach and teach, and making the space for your staff, and that it's not a hierarchical approach, that it's creating to be able to have everyone of people who you think is at the bottom, but in reality, they are the ones with the relationships. And I'm going to come back to that peer piece a minute after Principal Stovall. If you can share a little bit, tell us about how do you get to that space of willingness to work towards solutions, not only if you want to go with your staff, but also I know you do a lot around parents and parent engagement.
Yes, so I like Principal Brother Moody, we do a lot of opportunities where we provide entry points for students to communicate.
Beloved, if we're going to create a climate for success for our young people, we must also intentionally go after the following. First, mentoring. Young people need individuals who have trust in relationships with them and who help them to reflect and give second chances. They must know that they have individuals who help them articulate their goals and help them craft a roadmap to their goals. Mentoring is about you and where you want to go in your life. The other thing that I found that is also important is helping our students with a timeline. Students need to know how to articulate where they are in time. And most importantly, they must know that what they do between now, the ages of 14 to 24, are significant and influence their future, their ability to earn, and the quality of their relationships. Here's another piece that we've also lost as a community that we need to reclaim. I'd like to point us in the direction of rites of passages. Historically, in Black and Brown communities, rites of passages were critical to developing the confidence and also setting the expectations for our youth. A rite of passage sends the message to our young people that they're moving from childhood to adulthood and that they are expected to rise to the challenge, to mature, and to let go of the actions of a young person, a child, and now embrace manhood and womanhood. In order to meet the Mbk milestones, we also have to invest in STEM. The jobs of today and the future are in STEM. We cannot change the unemployment data in our communities without a deep investment in mathematics and helping our students to see themselves and to have the expertise that they need in this new world. Take a look at the proposed Biden infrastructure plan and ask, how much of that money will really reach our communities in Brownsville and the South Bronx? The hopelessness and the despair fuels the crime. We must also develop businesses. If the businesses are not owned by people of color, then there's no investment or reinvestment in an economic base, no resources to invest in the little leagues and what our children really need in order to divert their attention and their anger to more positive outlets. Now, beloved, I know that the data can feel hopeless and overwhelming, but I want you to take a breath. Realize that together we do have power and we can reach for solutions like the My Brother's Keeper Alliance model. Together, we can work to reach these milestones which would create opportunities for our young men of color and for all of our youth in our community. We've come to the end of our time together. And once again, I want to invite you to check out any of the previous episodes of the Dr. Selma B. Show. Maybe the episode on self-worth and the testing culture. Please also connect with us on our Legacy Ed News or our community conversations with leaders. Beloved, saying thanks is not the same as giving thanks, and I give thanks for you.